March is spring cleaning time at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Every year around this time, they revise their job numbers from the past couple of years for every metro across the country. And it's not unusual for those updated calculations to tell us that some of the things that we thought were true actually weren't. So we're going to look at some numbers from 2011 today, and with me to do so, Greg Willett, VP of Research Analysis from MPF Research. And Greg, any general thoughts on these 2011 revisions before we dive into the numbers?
Well, the first thing that occurs to me as I look at the numbers, Jay, is that if you look across the top 100 metros across the country, it's pretty much evenly divided in terms of what metros got revised up in their job count and what got revised down. That's unusual. Typically, the revisions go in one direction or the other. What I think that shows us is the past year, the employment growth wasn't a smooth trajectory. It kicked in, it stalled out, it kicked back in. That means that any given point in time, you had a hard time figuring out exactly what's going on. But having said all that, when we got to the end of the year, the revisions were pretty minor, except just a handful of spots.
Okay, so let's take a look at our first list. We're going to show you which metros had the job growth revised down by at least 10,000 jobs from the number reported initially. And just so you know, doing a little bit of housekeeping here, we're looking at the estimates from the year ending November. That tends to be a better number to look at for the year overall, since December we start to see some seasonality at play. And as you can see, Boston is the one spot where we've seen some a very big downgrade in performance. Restated numbers say the metro gained just 10,600 jobs in 2011 compared to an initial estimate of 61,700 jobs. And in terms of total jobs created for its rank among the top 100 markets nationally, Boston drops from number 2 to number 34. That's a big drop, and those initial figures had seemed high, so a drop wasn't a complete surprise, but you have to wonder if that restated number here might be a little too small. Very big revenue growth in Boston's apartment sector over the past year, and that certainly would suggest that the economy gained more than just 10,600 jobs, though it is important to remember that most of the revenue growth comes from surging rents, not occupancy. Looking further down that list, metros where job production count backtracked by about 10,000 to 16,000 jobs from that initial estimate were San Diego, Seattle, the Riverside, San Bernardino area, Sacramento, and Louisville.
Jay, let's turn to the list that everybody actually wants to see here, and these are the metros where the revised job count is up meaningfully from the initial numbers. And we've got another chart for you here. What we see is that job creation was boosted by some 40,000 to 42,000 positions relative to the original figures in Atlanta and New York. Revisions took the growth volumes higher by 21,000 to 23,000 jobs in Washington, D.C. and Long Island. And the adjustments made added in another 10,000 to 14,000 jobs in 7 markets. Those are Los Angeles, Charlotte, Richmond, Indianapolis, Chicago, Denver, and Detroit. Jay, I think one of the really interesting ones there is, in fact, Atlanta. And when we talk about that market individually, we almost always say that it's really one of the hardest ones across the country to forecast what's going to happen in the apartment market. And part of that really comes down to those job numbers. If you look at the opinions from experts moving forward, the numbers that they predict are all over the place. And to some degree, that reflects that, in fact, it's hard to get a handle on what the current number is. Now, having said that, I really actually like this revised number from the BLS for 2011. It shows that some growth has come back, still a little bit below the historical norm, so some progress, but not great, and that's exactly what you see in the general apartment market performance as well.
And let's jump from Atlanta to one more to highlight for you, Washington, D.C., where the employment growth number was pushed upward to 32,200 jobs from an initial estimate of 8,800 jobs. In the last video we did on Washington, D.C., one of the key themes was that the general sentiment in our industry has become pretty negative toward the D.C. apartment market. And no, it's not likely to be one of the best performers in the country during the next few years, but the outlook is pretty stable and healthy in our view. And the fact that the restated job production numbers from this past year show some decent growth certainly supports a generally favorable forecast for the next couple of years.
And I'll add 2 more to highlight there on this list, and that would be Charlotte and Denver. For Charlotte, the new job production number is 11,800 jobs gained rather than 2,000 jobs lost. For Denver Boulder, we're now at 22,600 jobs added, up from a prelim estimate of about 12,000 gained. And in those cities, Charlotte in particular, these new numbers really correspond to what's happening in the apartment marketplace more so than the original estimates did. These ones have made some really good progress over the past year, so you would think that, in fact, they were creating quite a few jobs.
And one more list for you. We're going to look at the post-reshuffling, what metro areas came on top for job growth in 2011. And here are the 12 that added at least 25,000 jobs apiece. The leaders by a big margin are Houston at 82,900 jobs and New York at 70,700 jobs. Another 5 cities that created 30,000 to 39,000 jobs are Dallas, Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., and Seattle. And next up with some 25,000 to 29,000 were Atlanta, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, Phoenix, and Tampa. And for Houston, those job additions translated to an expansion rate of 3.2%, a great rate for such a big metro area. And the growth rates were also very strong, perhaps surprisingly strong, in Pittsburgh at 2.3% and Tampa Bay at 2.2%.
Jay, let me follow up with Tampa being on that list, and I'll point out that also on there you've got Atlanta and Phoenix. Now, these were housing bust markets, so when the U.S. as a whole started to add some jobs in early 2010, they were very slow getting out of the gate, but they've got some traction now, and the numbers are looking pretty good, and that's actually a good sign for some of these other markets that have gone through the housing bust, and the for-sale housing sector still at this point is holding down the overall results a little bit.
Absolutely. And I'll wrap it up with a shout out to Pittsburgh and Detroit, 2 markets that are starting to see some pretty good progress in their job numbers and also some solid numbers in the apartment sector as well. Certainly a couple that could be some under the radar performers. And this is our last video for March, unfortunately. And next time that we're with you, we're going to be talking about the results from first quarter 2012 for the U.S. apartment market. Most of us came in with pretty high expectations for 2012. Did we live up to the hype? We'll see. So until then, for MPF Research and for Greg Willett, I'm Jay Parsons. Thank you for watching Apartment Market Dynamics.
Want more? Go deeper with NPF Research's apartment market reports. From a national level, down to individual metros, to specific neighborhoods, NPF Research has been providing unparalleled apartment market intelligence to the multifamily industry for almost 5 decades. Learn more by contacting us at 877-284-4938 or visit www.npfresearch.com and click on Market Reports.